Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be doing a tier list of every single legend in Apex Legends. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but the new season just came out, and you guys seem to really enjoy my last one, so yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, first off we have Bangalore, the most consistently consistent legend. It hasn't had a lot of changes. A few seasons ago she got a buff to her ultimate, which is really good. Still, she's just been really consistent. Her passive is very good. Her ultimate's very good. Ultimate's very good for not as much getting kills, but for zoning and blocking off areas. Really is a jack of all trades. She has movement. She has an offensive and a zoning ability. Her smokes can block line of sight. You can use it to heal. Really helpful. Alright, next we have Bloodhound, who is definitely he's either A tier or I'm gonna put him in S tier. Let's be honest here, he's been consistently amazing for such a long time. His scan is phenomenal, and his ultimate, you are being scanned every few seconds. I think the cooldown for his scan when he's in his ultimate is 8 seconds, and the actual scan lasts about 3. So you're being scanned for like 40% of the time when he has his ultimate. And that is just really potent. His passive, I think, is overlooked a lot by the community. It's not amazing, but it's still very good if you're an offensive player. Alright, next we have Caustic. I think Caustic is balanced. It's hard to say. He's gone through so many changes, and especially with this new map, which is much more open. It is hard to say. His gas is finally, I feel, balanced. You can spend time in his gas, but it does get dangerous after a while, so I think they've kind of hit the sweet spot with how much damage his gas does. His passive still isn't really a passive. I think you should get a new passive. And it's hard to distinguish like an enemy's smoke from your teammate's smoke, but that's all little, minor things that can be improved with time. And for now, I think he's not as good on the new map, but still very good. You know, his ultimate does thrive inside of buildings and tight rings and small areas, just like his tactical does. So I think he's good. I think he's good. Now, next we have Crypto. My boy Crypto. I used to be a Crypto main. He's in C tier. Maybe below B tier. He's just really not thriving right now. I think, has the lowest pick rates in the game. I mean, in a game that focuses on mobility and going into fights quickly, he's not very good. A very good Crypto player, you see, that's the issue with ranking Crypto. A good Crypto player could probably push him into A or S tier, but he's just, unless you're incredibly skilled, use his drone at the perfect times and reposition it, he's not very good. You have to actually be in his drone. You have to be controlling his drone to get any value. You know, besides using his ultimate and a passive scan. Enemies can destroy it pretty easily. It's loud. It's just, like I said, in a game that focuses on super high octane and fast-paced gameplay, Crypto isn't very good when he just sits in a building and leaves your teammates to fight in a 2v3, which is what happens most of the time with Crypto players, unless you are incredibly good with him. Alright, next Ashe. Ashe is, I think a little overrated. I think she's definitely an A tier. Kind of like a combination between Wraith and, someone else has like a stunish ability. No one else really has something that's like her tactical. It's a really unique. I'm glad that they are putting unique things in instead of just repeating the same things over and over, like certain games. Paladins. Very unique. I think her passive is very good. Not only offensively, but if you want to know where the remaining enemies of a team are, you can. You're able to scan people from across the entire map. If you find a death box and use her passive, it doesn't matter if they're across the map, you'll scan them. You now know where one team is. And it's even better when the circle's really small. If you want to hunker up in a building, you can scan some death boxes, get the location of the surviving squad or the surviving enemies. It's really good. I think it's a very underrated part of her kit. Her ultimate is definitely interesting. Not as good as repositioning as Wraith's ultimate, but much better on offense, I think. And it still can be used to get out of sticky situations, but you don't have to risk yourself, because Wraith has to walk across the area her portal goes. You don't have to risk yourself. Plus, it's much faster than Wraith's actually setting it up. With Wraith, you have to walk in between the two portal locations. With Ashe, you can just swipe your blade, and then boom, you have a portal entrance. Not as long, but I think it's a very, very nice ability. It's going to be very interesting to see how people are going to use it in creative ways. I remember all the Wraith traps where people would make people fall off the map or go into rooms that are just filled with gas traps and Wattson fences. Anyways, her tactical, I think, is very, very good. It is disorienting. It slows you down. Throw it in the middle of a fight, you're bound to get at least one person most of the time, and it disorients. It is hard to fight with. It is incredibly useful not only for slowing people down, but also for blocking areas off and defending. It really is amazing. Like I said, her ultimate's kind of like Wraith's, but worse at positioning, but I think a little faster and better at offense. So, next. Fuse, I think Fuse... He's a tough one. I feel like his old buffs that put him in B tier are kind of starting to wear off a little bit, especially with the more open map. He's much better, kind of like Caustic, much better in closed areas. I think he's B tier. I think he's B tier at the very bottom of B tier. I think people really underestimate his ability to carry lots of grenades, but now with the rise of Wattson again, someone who's based completely on grenades is gonna struggle a bit. Plus, Ashe's ultimate is now just another way for people to get out of his ultimate. I'm actually gonna put him in C tier. I mean, with the rise of Wattson, and then there's Ashe, whose ultimate is just a free pass to get out of his ultimate. He's just not very good. Gibby, I feel like this should be obvious. He's the best character in the game right now. I don't know what to say. He counters almost everybody. He'll counter Ashe's tactical. He counters grenades. His ultimate is amazing. His passive is amazing. His shield bubble is so useful for not only covering yourself, but if you need to make a quick rotation and somebody's just camping a pathway, you can throw it down and just run right past because they can't shoot through the shield. He's incredibly good. I feel like his shield is the most used ability, definitely. It can be used for healing, reviving, just in general protecting yourself, or blocking off a choke point to stop people from throwing grenades through it. It really is amazing. It counters Ashe's tactical. He's very, very good. All right, next Horizon. This is tough. Because once again, she does a little bit rely on the map. Although I think she's... I'm going to put her at the bottom of A for now. Just because of her recent buffs that kind of reverted her nerfs, so she can stay at the top of her gravity lift a little longer. Still think that is incredibly useful. Still think that her ability is incredibly useful. Her ultimate is, you can do some crazy combinations, with Caustic and Fuse. I'm just imagining all of the combinations you'll be able to make with Ashe's tactical on her ultimate. You can do a lot of really fun things with her. I think she's deserving of a spot in A tier. Lifeline, I think, is finally balanced. I think I'm going to put her above... Yeah, I'm going to put her above Bangalore. Maybe bottom of 8? Nah. I think she's finally balanced. She had a huge power imbalance in her abilities, where her passive was actually the most powerful by far, and her tactical was probably the weakest. But now they've kind of gotten it sorted out, and I think her power levels are much more balanced. Her drone revive isn't as useful anymore, and if you don't do it behind cover, someone will probably just shoot them. So she's definitely useful. I think they finally struck the sweet spot with Lifeline. Her ultimate finally gives attachments that you actually need and more armor, so that's very nice. Loba is bottom of B tier. I was really hoping we were going to get a support legend this season before they revealed Ashe, because we only have 2 supports right now, but she's good. She's definitely much, much better after they fix the inconsistencies with her hitbox and her tactical. I still think her ultimate is very underrated. If you're under pressure from a few teams, you're trapped in a building, it is very useful for just quickly getting some ammo, some heals, some grenades, and restocking yourself. If you have a few teams or even just one team that's just, putting you under some serious fire and you're out of supplies, just put down her ultimate. But I still think that she's really, as long as you're well equipped before a battle, you don't really need her ultimate. It will speed up the looting process a bit in the early stages of the game, but it's still really not amazing. Okay, next we have Mirage. I feel like everyone saw this coming. Every single time he gets buffed, the issue with Mirage is that every single time he gets buffed, he's going to be good for a little bit, or he's going to be average for a little bit, but then people are going to learn his tricks, and he's going to go back down. When he was buffed so that you could control his decoy, he was in B tier, or C tier, maybe even B tier for a little bit, and then people learned how to recognize decoys again, and he went back down into D tier. His passive is good, but anyone who has well enough sound recognition and a half-decent eye can easily find you, especially with the relevance of scanners. We have Seer, who will completely interrupt the reviving process, Bloodhound, and like I said, anyone with a good enough headset and a good enough ear will be able to spot out close enough where he's reviving, so it's really not that useful. His ultimate, once again, if a good player recognizes your previous position before you use your ultimate, they're probably going to have a pretty good idea where you're moving to. And so he's just really a good player. I mean, I feel like if you're going against new players, he's probably B tier or maybe even A tier. If you're using him in the very beginning of the game where people have no idea that invisible revive isn't even a thing, they have no idea it exists, they don't know the difference between a decoy and a Mirage, he's probably B or A tier, but he is terrible in any other situation. Octane. I think he's in the bottom of A tier, no longer S tier. I think one big reason is the new launch thingies, which are pretty much just a better launch pad that don't require use of an ultimate, and it's just... Sorry about that, dog's barking. Yeah, but he's still very, very good. They did add some audio cues to prevent Revain pushes, which is Revenant, and Octane pushes. Use both their ultimates at once. But he's still very, very good. Very good. 40% speed boost is a pretty decent boost. His ultimate is still incredibly useful, but just undermined a tiny bit due to the new map, meta changes. He was nerfed a little bit, and the existence of those giant cannon things. Path, I think Path is B tier. I think he's definitely in the high parts of B tier. His ultimate is becoming weaker and weaker as more positioning abilities are becoming more useful. Octane's jump pad, we now have the giant human cannon things, we have Ashe's ultimate. So his ultimate is just becoming much less useful as they're putting in more and more repositioning abilities. Also, other people can take the zipline. It's not like Wraith or Ashe where people can't follow you. If you're trying to use it to escape and there's a team right behind you, they'll probably just follow you. But yeah, he's very fun to play. If you can master his tactical, he can become incredibly good. He probably has the worst passive in the game, if I'm going to be honest. Well, no, that probably goes to... Anyways, if you master his passive, it can be incredibly good. You can go very, very long distances if you can master the different parts of his tactical and the different mechanics of it, but I think he's a solid B tier. Rampart, now it's going to be a little controversial. Okay, let's see here. B tier or C tier? Let's see. C tier or B tier? With the new map that's a bit more open, I know she got those changes. Okay, just due to... I'm sorry, C tier. The new map isn't really doing her all that good. I thought that her buffs would have a bigger change on her performance, but it really didn't. It really didn't change a whole lot. It's not really much to say. Her kit's pretty underwhelming. For someone who can put up giant freaking walls, they don't have a lot of health. They can be destroyed pretty easily. You can be flanked around, especially, like I said, with the bigger map. It takes a lot of micromanagement to play her effectively. The way that most people play her is like a campy play style. But the way to play her most effectively is an offensive play style where you would block off doors, stuff like that. But it takes a lot of micromanagement. It's very difficult to play. Next we have Rev. Good old buddy Rev. Started off in D or C tier, was buffed to A tier, and I think he's in B tier. They're kind of working on the issue of Revain pushes. And, no, I think he's above Pathfinder. He thinks he's in the Path with B tier. They're working on Revain pushes, making that less useful. His, he counters. He partially counters every single legend because his ability turns off their abilities. So he kind of counters every other legend, really. He doesn't really have any characters that counter him incredibly, like Revenant counters Wraith incredibly well, and Caustic counters campers and stuff like that. But what am I saying? Sorry, my mind started to wander. Yeah, he doesn't really have like a lot of weaknesses. I feel like there's not one legend he'll go up against that he'll have a harder time facing than any other legend. Because I feel like, and he counters all other legends pretty easily, just with his tactical. But it really does depend on the legend you hit. Let's say you hit an Octane or a Wraith or a Gibraltar in the middle of a fight. They're going to be devastated. But then you can hit a Mirage or a Crypto in the middle of a fight and they won't even blink because they don't usually use their abilities in the middle of a fight. Crypto usually just lets his drone fly around. So it really does depend on the person you're going up against. Once again, his tactical is much more effective in closed areas where people have less room to run around and it's easier to hit them. But I still think he's B. Used to be A because of the Revtain pushes, but they're working on that. Everyone thought Valkyrie was going to be S tier, but her abilities after getting the nerf with her jets and her missiles, you can't hover indefinitely anymore by using the jets at the same time that you're using, holding down the missile button. She's not as good anymore, and I thought she was definitely overhyped because in practice, her missiles are much harder to hit. People will shoot you down a lot more in your flying mode, so I think she's comfortably in the middle of B tier. Just because, like I said, she's a lot worse in practice than she is on paper. Next we have... This is tough. She got so many changes. It's kind of difficult to place exactly where she is right now. But I think she's in D tier. No joking, I think she's in A tier. Like I said, it is hard to tell exactly where she is, but since, number one, Ash's tactical is a projectile, I think her ultimate actually does stop Ash tactical, so that's nice. She got a huge revamp to her ultimate, and I wouldn't call it a revamp exactly, like a rework to her fences, but she did get them buffed. Very, very useful for stopping things like Fuse. It'll even disintegrate things like Bangalore smokes. And they also fixed a bug where, and so it no longer disintegrates. Like if someone on your team is trying to throw a grenade out of a window, it won't zap the grenade before it goes out the window anymore. So I think she's comfortably in A tier. Wraith, also A tier. Definitely near the top of A tier. But I think they finally nerfed her enough, including, making her have a bigger hitbox, just lowering the effectiveness of her ultimate. I think she's in a much, much better place. Much better place than she was before when she was dominating the entire meta. Pretty simple. She's very good at rotating, very good at escaping. Her passive is a bit iffy. Doesn't really work sometimes, but she's still very good. Next, Seer. I think Seer is again in the middle of the pack in B tier. It's pretty difficult, I think, to pull off a successful tactical, just because people can move out of the way and it's not very big. His ultimate is very, very good, definitely in like the top 5 ultimates in the game. But okay, I'm gonna put him in the top of B tier. No, go in the top. His ultimate is good. His passive is good as well. Of course, it's just kind of like extended hearing range, but still very good. Ultimate can detect enemies. It makes them much less offensive, much makes them question their decisions to do a push and kind of settle in for a little bit, which gives you and your teammates time to heal and get back into good positions and revive because your enemies don't want to risk being seen. So, yeah. I'm just going to look over real quick. I don't think I want to change the positions of anybody. Maybe? Nah, I don't think Ashe deserves to be in S tier. But yes, this is my tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time.